So you think you know Krampus, that big horned Christmas demon, right? Well, I'm here to tell you that the monster you've seen in the movies, that's barely scratching the surface. The real story is so much older, so much stranger, and honestly, way more interesting. Let's get into it.
Yeah, what we see in pop culture today is just a tiny little slice of the real legend. We're gonna peel back all the layers of this old Alpine folklore, and I promise you, what we find underneath is way more compelling than any Hollywood horror movie. Right? This is the guy we all recognize. He's the solo monster, the lone wolf who shows up to terrorize naughty kids. You know, a pretty simple, scary villain for the holidays. It's an easy idea to sell, but it completely misses the whole point of where he came from, and maybe more importantly, who he works for. And here it is, our first big twist. Krampus isn't the main event. He's actually the muscle, the intimidating sidekick in a duo that's been making the rounds in villages across Austria and Bavaria for centuries.
That's right, Saint Nicolaus. Way before there was a Santa Claus, there was this guy, a saint, who would visit homes to check up on the kids. But here's the thing, he never came alone. He always brought Krampus with him to handle the disciplinary side of things. What's so great about this is how it lays out their whole dynamic. It is a classic good cop, bad cop routine. You've got St. Nicolaus, who quizzes the kids and gives the good ones little gifts like nuts and fruit. And then standing right there is Krampus, rattling his chains, waving around a bundle of birch switches. You know, just a terrifying reminder to know your catechism and be good. It's a whole system of reward and punishment, all in one visit. And this all happens on a very specific schedule. December 5th, that's Krampusnacht, or Krampus night. That's when he gets to roam the streets. The very next day, December 6th, is Nikolotog, St. Nicholas Day. And this all leads right into the Rauhnächte, the rough nights, which are the 12 days of Christmas. A time in folklore when the veil between our world and the spirit world is supposed to be super, super thin. But the story goes even deeper. As terrifying as Krampus is, he might not even be the original winter boogeyman of the Alps. So let's meet the figure who probably inspired him in the first place. Okay, this is where we get into the really deep folklore. Forget the horned devil for a second and just imagine a powerful ancient female entity who basically rules over the darkest nights of the year. Her name is Perchta. She's this incredibly complex, goddess-like figure who judges people during those rough nights, the Rauhnächte. And she's got this dual nature. She can be a bringer of blessings, but she can also deliver some absolutely terrifying punishment. She really embodies the two sides of winter itself, right? The cozy, warm home and the deadly, freezing blizzard outside. And this perfectly shows off her two-sided personality. Her followers are literally split into two groups. You've got the Schönparkten, the beautiful Parkten, who wear these gorgeous, ornate masks and bring good luck for the new year. And then you've got the Schiakparkten, the ugly Parkten. Their job is to wear monstrous masks and make a ton of noise to scare away winter's evil spirits. So you have good and evil, creation and destruction, all in one single tradition. Exactly! Annie Faller, who is a tradition bearer from Austria, just nails it with this quote. Perchta has a Janus face, meaning she's looking both forwards and backwards, rewarding and punishing. And what was her main thing? Hard work. See, back then, your family's survival literally depended on getting ready for winter, so laziness wasn't just a bad habit, it was a real threat. She'd apparently check on the women of the house to make sure they'd finished all their spinning for the year. And if you were lazy, well, this is where it gets truly horrifying. The legend says her punishment was gastrotomy, which is a very polite, academic way of saying she'd slit your belly open. Yeah. Forget a swat with a birch switch, she would supposedly rip you open, stuff your insides with straw and garbage, and then sew you back up with an iron chain. Suddenly, Krampus's basket doesn't seem so bad, does it?
So all of this sounds like ancient, dusty legends from a book, right? Well, wrong. This isn't just history. It's happening right now, every single winter, in towns all across the Alps. No, these customs are absolutely thriving. They are a huge part of the local identity, passed down from one generation to the next. It is a massive spectacle of fire, clanging bells, incredible carved masks, and animal furs that literally takes over entire villages. So how does this all actually play out today? Well, there are a few different ways. You still have the small, personal house visits, just like in the old stories, but then you have the Läufe, or runs, which are these huge organized parades that draw thousands of people. And then there's the most intense version, the Freilauf, or free run. That's when there are no barriers and all the masked figures just run wild through the streets, getting right up in the crowd. It's chaotic and amazing. And the absolute heart of all of this is the mask. I mean, these are not your cheap plastic Halloween costumes. These are incredible works of folk art. They're hand-carved from wood, they have real animal horns attached, and they're either passed down through families or commissioned for a lot of money. The mask is everything. It holds the spirit of the character and the identity of the group that wears it.
But, like any living tradition, it doesn't stay frozen in time. It's changing. And that change is creating this really fascinating tension between the old ways, the Heimat or homeland, and the pressures of the modern world.
Just listen to this quote from Klaus Mehlig, who's part of a traditional group. He really gets to the heart of the debate. He says, look, the old masks were definitely meant to be scary, but he's seeing a shift now towards something way more extreme, something that feels different than that old school folk terror.
And that something different is, of course, the influence of global pop culture. The local ancestral fears are kind of getting pushed aside for the look and feel of modern horror movies. And this has led to the rise of what some of the traditionalists are calling Schreckmasken, basically horror masks. Some people have even called it the Lord of the Rings effect. You have carvers who are now getting their inspiration from orcs and goblins in Hollywood movies. We're talking masks with unbelievable, gruesome details. Snot that's frozen mid-drip, bloody fangs, even exposed brain tissue. It's a total shift from a symbolic kind of scary to a very literal cinematic gore. And as you can imagine, it's causing a huge debate within these communities about what's authentic and what isn't. So what's driving all this change? Well, you can probably guess, tourism and the internet. These events that were once super local, just for the community, are now global spectacles. They're for tourists to watch and for people to post on social media. And this new global audience has a totally different set of expectations. And the tradition is adapting to meet them, for better or for worse. And that really leaves us with the big question here. When a tradition starts to adapt to outside influences, when it gets more commercial, when it changes its look to grab the attention of a new generation, is that a sign that it's dying? Or is that the very definition of a living, breathing culture, one that's proving how vital it is by refusing to just become a dusty old museum piece?